My name is Gabby Calloway. I am a junior at Hampton University. I'm a health science major. I'm a science major with a focus in policy and admin, but my goal is actually to be a nurse.
Tell us a little bit more about your parents, because we know they had a little sports background, but their names, their occupations.
So my dad's name is Robert Calloway. He's a retired Air Force. He's self-employed right now. He played sports like in the Air Force. He did a lot of softball, baseball, and he actually used to be an official for sports. So he did high school, some collegiate. And then my mom, who's Barbara Calloway, she played volleyball in college at William Penn, and then she went on to join the Air Force as well.
So Gabby, thinking back to middle of your sophomore year last year, early 2020, when was the first time you heard of the coronavirus, and what were your thoughts initially?
I think I had read something about it just being a virus that was happening. It wasn't even in America yet. And then kind of when I heard, I think there was a couple that came in off a cruise ship in Virginia Beach. That was kind of the first case that we saw around here. I was like, okay, it's kind of getting closer. We had just come back to school from spring break, and the university started sending stuff out about students that had traveled internationally. And then sports practices just kind of stopped, which was really crazy. And I think when I realized that this was going to affect us is when the NBA was yeah, we're not having a season, and they canceled. So I figured that it wouldn't be long before they ended up sending us home and, stopping all collegiate sports and stuff. I wasn't even home for a whole week before my dad actually got sick. We were out playing tennis as a family. When we got home, we were just it was just cold and he was already sweaty, so it was probably, he was probably just chilled. But then we quickly realized it was more than a chill. He was literally laying by the fireplace with 3 blankets on him. He started with just having a fever, and then he had really bad abdominal pain. He wasn't coughing at all, and he really didn't even have shortness of breath until the Sunday a week after he experienced his first symptom. And when he started experiencing that shortness of breath, we were like, okay, we have to go to the hospital.
So during the time your dad was in the hospital, how was your family able to see him or get updates on his status?
So we were not able to see him at all. At that point, the hospital had pretty much not allowed any visitors. And on the front of the hospital, you could see up to where his window was. It was on the second floor. And so we could look into the room, and obviously it was kind of hard to see him, but we knew he was in there. So we would drive out to the front of the hospital and just look up in his window and pray. And that was really special to even be able to know where he was at specifically. And that was really the only way we saw him. But the nurses and the staff at that hospital were so amazing. They got my mom's personal contact number, and she was able to get any information whenever she asked. They were really, really great about communicating with her.
Just how serious was his condition during that time? Was your family called back to the hospital for fear that he might pass?
From the time he went in the hospital, he went downhill pretty quickly. At first, he was just on an oxygen mask, and then within a week of admitting him to the hospital, they had placed him on a ventilator. And as he was on the ventilator, they were basically telling us that people only stay on a ventilator for about 9 to 10 days. And he was kind of nearing the edge of those days when they left him on. And while he was still on the ventilator, he actually experienced a blood clot that went to his heart. And so that in and of itself is a very dangerous thing. After he experienced that blood clot, he was, like I said, he was still on the ventilator, and his condition got really bad after that. And they did call my mom in for the first time to be able to see him. I don't think we realized. My mom kind of tried to not tell us why they were letting her come in. But the doctors did tell her at that point that things were looking really bad, and they had done all that they could do for him, and it was really just up to his body being able to fight it off by itself at this point. He was on the ventilator for 17 days. And on the last day that he was on the ventilator, they ended up doing a tracheotomy. When they did the tracheotomy, he really started turning around, and he was breathing better. They started doing breathing trials with him. And so they ended up waking him up after, I think, like 3 days, 3 days after they did the tracheotomy. So he spent 41 days in the hospital. And then after he left the hospital, he spent 11 days in a rehab facility.
So when he was released from the hospital, what was the reaction of the hospital staff as well as your family?
Oh my goodness, the hospital staff was amazing. I believe he was their first coronavirus patient that was, suffering that badly in the ICU. And so it was a blessing at the time that there were so many people that were there that were able to interact with him and help him from the care team. And so almost everybody in the hospital knew who he was. They knew what room he was in. So when he left, they were lined up in the hospital, and they had balloons, and they were just doing a big celebration for him. So that was really, really cool. We got to have some family come and stand outside as he was going out. As they were wheeling him out to get him into the ambulance to take him to rehab, he was just holding on to his Bible and just proclaiming how good God is and how, God saved him from this. And so it was a really, really awesome moment. He was very skinny and fragile and was having a difficult time walking by himself, and just building up strength to do normal things like feeding himself. And that was the biggest thing, I think, was regaining his strength and then just getting him to be able to, move around and walk by himself. I think after 2 months, he started doing some of the things that he liked to do again, and now he's bowling, he's golfing, he's playing tennis.
Now, someone who wants to pursue a career in nursing, what did you observe about the frontline healthcare workers, and anything from that experience that you will take with you in your pursuit?
The nurses that he worked with, my goodness, they were absolutely amazing, honestly. They went above and beyond their duty, to take care of him. And I was so grateful for them. I got a chance to go and talk to them and shake their hand and just thank them. What I can take away from that, obviously pursuing a career in nursing, is that you really just have to show people the care and the love that you would want your family members to experience. Other families, especially those who are experiencing this right now, I just want to say that you have so much love and support, that there are some really, really great hospital staff out there, and I know if you can't be with your family members right now, that they are with them. I want to say that God is with you, and continue to pray and believe, and just love one another, and realize that life is so much bigger than little things that we might argue about.